again. So I hope everyone's had a great week. This is our 5th day of Tea Time SEO. I'm SEO Joe Blog's growth marketer, and we're joined by Carrie Shepherd.
Hi, guys.
Carrie has been sending you guys some of the emails from this week, and I hope everyone's brought a cup of tea, cake for today's lesson session. So we have 3 great people speaking today. We have Laurence O'Toole, we have Dave Davies, and we also have Jason Barnard talking to us about SERPs and featured snippets. Today we have Davis, and we also have Jason Barnard talking to us about SERPs and featured snippets. Sorry for that. It looks like there's some echo.
That was me. I had YouTube on in the background. Sorry.
So this is our CEO, Laurence O'Toole. He's one of our speakers today. So everyone's going to introduce themselves, and then everyone's going to share their tips. We do have a time for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we will be answering them as well. And we have this every day at 4 p.m. so that people can take a 15-minute tea break or coffee break, meet others, connect, and learn something new. So over to you, Laurence, to introduce yourself to everyone.
Well, thank you. You can rely on me to mess up the live stream on my first appearance. Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks to Dave and Jason and to everyone else who's out there who watches this now or watches it later. I'm the CEO of Authoritas. I've been SEO for a long, long time, longer than I care to remember. And we've been running analytics SEO to now Authoritas for over 10 years, building SEO software. I love SEO data, big into analyzing data, whether that's through traditional SERPs methods or AI or machine learning or anything else. Really looking forward to hearing what Dave and Jason have got to say today, because really I'm just here to warm them up. And lastly, I'm an Englishman. I love tea and cake, and a shout out to my 11-year-old girls who've made me this enormous piece of cake for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurence.
I'm Dave Davies. I've been doing SEO for a long time. I've known Jason for a long time as well, so looking forward to hearing what he has to say. And I'm a proud mammal. Thanks.
That's great. And over to Jason.
Yeah, hi, Jason Barnard. I've been in SEO for almost as long as Laurence, but not quite. I didn't know he'd beaten me. I'm a digital nomad now in an Airbnb in the south of France for the lockdown period. I've got a podcast. If you want to listen to that, Laurence has been on it. Dave hasn't been on it, but will be one day when I can catch him. He keeps running away. And I know Authoritas because I use the SERP API, which is absolutely brilliant. A bit of a plug there for your SERP API. I collect brand SERPs. It's my hobby, which sounds a bit sad. I collect brand SERPs and I analyze them. And I use Authoritas to do it. And it's genius. Was that good, Laurence?
Wow, that's great.
So thank you, Jason. So over to Laurence to share your stats, your tips, please.
Right. Well, thank you. As you may have gathered, Jason shares my enthusiasm for analysing SERP data. And so my job today is just to warm you guys up for the main attraction, which is Jason and Dave, to give you some actionable tips around how to use your knowledge of these SERP features to get a competitive edge. So what I've got is a couple of quick slides for you, some stats that we've collected from our big database of 125 million commercial keywords in multiple countries. Here I've got 11 major markets, and I'm just going to run through quickly some top level stats so you can get a sense of the prevalence of these different SERP result features. By all means, there's a link to the blog. Go and look at them at your leisure. Ask us for the full download. Happy to share. But you've seen 100 presentations on. There's no 10 blue links anymore. But just in case you were in any doubt whatsoever, here are some top-level stats. So you can see the penetration of video results. You're seeing these across the SERPs in all major international markets, ranging from 46%, I think is the low in Sweden. I can't really see it without my glasses on the screen, up to about 77.5% in Spain. If you look for local packs and local pack penetration, you can see if you move to Joe, you can move. I'm going to go quickly, Joe. So, from a low of 5.7% in Finland all the way up to 20.6% in Sweden. If you look at brand results, so it's obviously something Jason looks at in a huge amount of detail. These are what we call as keywords generating multiple site links. So low of 5.9% in Spain, up to about 11% in Norway. You've got better eyesight than me, so that's good. And then featured snippets, obviously something the whole SEO community has been talking about for many years now. Finland, 3%, up to about 12.3% of all keywords are showing featured snippets in the SERPs in the US. So you can see that, Google will roll things out at different times. And you can see people also ask is a great example of this, where we're not seeing a huge number of people also ask results in some of the Nordic countries right now. But in markets like the UK and the US, where they've rolled them out earlier, you're seeing huge penetration levels, 50, 60% levels of all keywords across a huge database, 125 million keywords, are generating people also ask results. So it is essential that you start to understand what it is to rank for the keywords that matter for you in your market. And lastly, knowledge graph. Obviously, again, Jason's pet topic here, the knowledge graph, and is really interesting to see how that's quite uniform across different countries from, roughly 13, 14% penetration. So there's some stats. There's loads more data on our blog if you want to go for it. But my really point here about knowledge graph and universal SERP features is how you use them to understand what content to create and understand what people talk about keyword intent. I like to talk about user intent. But either way, I see all this research out there about and SEOs publishing advice on how to calculate keyword intent or user intent and create a long list of modifiers with keywords that have buy, compare, and review, and they're transactional, and ones that have brand names are brand. I just think it's complicated. It doesn't work across multiple markets, and yet the answer is staring you in the face. Use the SERP. Understand absolutely every possible SERP feature, and that's what we do in our API. We analyze everything, and then look at the different SERP features that come up and build a model, build a rules-based approach or a scoring, or you can train data and use machine learning like we do to say, hey, if a SERP's got multiple of these types of features, it's more likely to be navigational. So it's more likely that a user's looking for a specific entity, a company, a website, a brand. And you can see there, we'll share the slides afterwards. You can see all the different types of knowledge graph. And I could just pick on a couple of examples. Even local packs, when local packs list the same brand multiple times, then it gives you a clue that actually there's a brand term in there, even if it's not a brand you're familiar with. So there's lots and lots of things you can look at. Navigation intent, informational intent is obvious. Obviously, you'll see, direct answers appearing for specific dates, like when was the Battle of Waterloo. Again, you'll see different types of knowledge graph entities and different type of featured snippets appearing. If you look at what I call commercial research, I think it's really important to separate out just informational queries with no commercial intent and ones where there isn't a direct commercial intent to buy something, but there is some sort of commercial intent, and they are, as a user, somewhere on the buyer journey. And you can look at all the different types, from ads, shopping, videos, images, rich snippets, research guides, the type of ranking sites, whether e-commerce category pages are appearing, even the top nav bar, whether it says shows shopping results, etc. These are all give you clues that what the user has searched for has some commercial intent. And finally, transactional intent. Well, obviously, again, similar types of results. There's some overlap, ads, shopping, rich snippets, etc. But you'll also see detailed knowledge graph results on panels on the right-hand side, refined search, refined by brand, refined by similar products. Again, lots and lots of different SERP features here that give you clues by looking at the features Google shows and the type of sites that rank. And if you use that knowledge, and if you move on, you can use that knowledge to help understand your user intent. And it is not binary. Yes, occasionally keywords like Britax in this example, or Tesco's or something, is a brand term, and that's all you've got to go on. But more often than not, users are searching with longer terms, and they're more complex than that. And it is a combination of a research term and perhaps something that's slightly transactional, or it's a brand term, voucher codes for Britax car seats, or buy Britax car seats, which is a navigational influence and a transaction influence. And the type of term that you've got has a bearing on the type of content. If you just flip back just one slide, sorry, if you just flip back, you can use this knowledge to think about top, middle, and bottom of the funnel and the type of content that you should be publishing. So if you're writing about best family cars, the SERP is full. It's a research term. It's got some commercial intent, but the SERP's full of articles. So don't have a listings page full of listings about used Volvos, because it isn't going to rank. And what you can do is, if you analyze this, you can look at the dominant intent, and it might be research transactional, it might be navigation on its own. But if you can see in the bottom corner, it's quite small. You can actually use those rules to give you a score as to what type of navigational intent. And Jason's going to be very excited because we're about to roll that out in our API. And if you really understand that, I'll give you a good example on the next slide. This is an example of Skyscanner. These are brands executing really well. Skyscanner, double organic listings, organic FAQs for London to Aberdeen flights. Not only has Google rewarded them with double, number 1 and number 2 organic listings with organic FAQs. Okay, they're below the Google Flight Finder, which is, they can't really beat, but it even summarizes their answers. So, and they've done this because it matches the right type of user intent with the content on the page. It's got a search engine, it's got related text and images, it's got FAQ markup and FAQ questions and answers. So for me, that's a great opportunity. And we see loads and loads of brands doing this. And my top tip, before I hand it over to the guys who can give you loads more top tips than I can, is automate this at scale. Take your head terms, find all the questions for them. You can use it using our FAQ Explorer tool, but there's also things like Answer the Public, or just use Google Suggest and mine that. Get yourself a list of related keywords, questions and answers that are already there to your top keywords. And then if you move on, use a tool like there's some graph tools here. Graph Commons is one, and Kuma is another one. And you can cluster these. And it's very small, but you can start to see the relationship between key questions consumers are asking and your key head terms. And you can start to understand which questions are most central to your theme. And here's some example. This is SEO related. You can start to see the questions that are very important to each niche, like keyword research tool, keyword research API. And you can see the questions. And if you zoom in on the next slide, you'll see an example. So I can't read it with my glasses, but there's something along the lines of how to, if I remember correctly, something like how to, can you read it for me? How do I choose keywords, I think?
Yeah, so you can, it's a free keyword research, best keyword research tool, but the actual center question is, how do I choose keywords?
So God, I need really strong glasses. How do I choose keywords is a question that comes up multiple times and people also ask, and it's linked to loads and loads of your key head terms. So that is a question you've absolutely got to ensure that you can answer well on some of your key pages. So with that, I will hand it over to someone who can give you even more advice and actionable advice on what to do with your knowledge of the SERPs.
Thank you very much, Laurence. That was a lot of information. Thank you. We'll hand over to Dave. Over to you.
Perfect. I'll try and get through because that was some interesting information. We got some great information coming up from Jason. So I'll try and stay on track here as hard as that can be for me, like eating up the first 10 seconds with just introducing. I'll stay on track here. So we'll start. One of the primary things that I see as a critical flaw in the way people view things. And so that's my top tip. One is viewing Google as your adversary in this, and SERP features and featured snippets as theft. And I used an article example. That's the number one, sort of result. Are they stealing your traffic? I think part of the problem here hits in on, it's not your traffic, it's Google's traffic. When somebody's searching on Google, that's not you. So try and get that out of your head, this idea that Google is somehow stealing your traffic. As noted on this slide, apologies to publishers because this doesn't really apply to you quite as much, but I mean everybody else, because people are not buying less stuff. It's not like we're becoming less consumer. There's still going to be as many sales. You still have as much opportunity to make that sale. It generally tends to be informational queries. So yes, that can sort of ding publishers, because at the same time on Google and on as we are on Facebook, we'll just read titles. And so publishers are missing their ad revenue maybe, but nobody else is really losing much. Tip 2, this is again on the tangent of search features stealing clicks. Laurence kind of touched on this. I'm sure Jason will as well. No, they're not. And as we can see from these arrows, they're actually telling you what to do to get the clicks that you want. So what we're not looking for, generally, most sites, e-commerce sites, B2B sites, people who actually have a transactional nature in what their final conversion goal is, you're not tending to generally actually need the conversion on the informational queries. But from those informational queries, you get things like related entities listed there, related questions listed there. As Laurence was talking about, these are great places to go and actually look for the questions that you should be answering. You may only get a featured snippet and not get a click for that answer, but you're going to get some branding in there, and you're going to know that as Google is looking at your site for all of the relevancy of your site, you're including all the entities and answers that their users could possibly want for the more generic terms. Tip 3, copy your competitors, but better. I used to launch in on this. That's because I got started in 2002, where it was like, okay, I'll just do all the links that my competitors have, add 10%, and we're done. And it worked, right? It was just like basic math, and this is an algorithm. What I included here is best time to visit the Outer Banks. It's got a nice featured snippet. Should I copy that featured snippet? No, I shouldn't. Now, I know from this one, and you probably, anybody would from their own sectors, this actually isn't a good answer. Like, I mean, not with a bias, it's actually the wrong answer. And there's other queries, Outer Banks vacation rentals. The featured snippet is a list of 10 of the towns in there. That's all it is. It gives you no information on this. So copy your competitors, maybe be inspired by them, but don't produce necessarily the same formats. Ask yourself, is it the best answer? This one has the right format. A paragraph answer probably would work, maybe a list. But is it the best answer? No. So you need to provide a better answer. Is it the best format? Consider if it's the best format. If it's not, produce it in a better format. Maybe hedge your bets and produce it in the same format in case Google hits a snooze button on figuring that one out. Do you, as the site, have the authority to capture that featured snippet? And if you don't, find somebody who does and publish there. I mean, basically in the principle of, yeah, okay, that'd be some nice branding, but stealing from your competitors is as good as capturing for yourself in a lot of cases. So even if you can't get the featured snippet, try and rip it away from your competitors. Stop them from getting the branding. So tip 4, Google gives the traffic. We already talked about the fact that they're not stealing your traffic, but let's assume that Google's giving you the traffic, and yet for so many queries, and can you tell what game I'm looking forward to its release coming this fall? That would be Black Ops 5. And the top results are video, rightfully so. These are some fine videos, but you can get links from YouTube. You can cheaply remarket your YouTube visitors, which is incredibly handy. Great branding, and in general, for a lot of the queries, the competition level is far lower on YouTube. So if you can put together, like if you watch some of these videos, and most of the videos in a lot of these sectors, probably the video that some of the people are watching right now, the production cost is actually not that high to produce a decent video. Webcam, especially in video games, webcam and some sort of screen capture, and you're good to go. Produce those, get the links in there, and then use YouTube, which itself is the second most popular search engine. Use it as the vehicle to get that traffic through to your site to sell your version of Black Ops 5. And the final tip here is the thought of a feature is a feature. It's just an important thing for people to remember. We all tend to do most of our work as digital marketers, at least speaking for myself, from our desktops. And so we look at the features on our desktops. Mobile and desktop produce different featured snippets in different orders in different formats. So it's incredibly important to understand who your visitor is for different query types. So your informational queries may be very different than your transactional queries. Who are they? What featured snippets are appearing on that device at that time and in what order? And that's incredibly important for people to pay attention to. Thanks, everybody. And I think Jason's up next.
Brilliant.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Some great tips. And if anyone has some questions, please put them in the chat.
I've actually got loads, but I'm not allowed to ask them if I've understood correctly.
You are allowed to ask, Jason. Ask them. Ask away.
Right. I'm going to go through mine really quickly. That was brilliant, Laurence. That was absolutely amazing, Dave. I think this isn't half long enough to actually discuss all this stuff. Give us 2 hours and we might start to get through it. Anyway, tip 1. This is the easiest one, the simplest one. I've been doing it for 6 months now. I used Yoast in WordPress using their FAQ markup, wrote an article about it. You can get the featured snippet really easily by using FAQ markup on Yoast in WordPress. Writing that one took me less than 5 minutes. Publishing it took another 5 seconds, and actually getting indexed by Google took 20 seconds. Getting that feature snippet took me less than a day. So using Yoast schema markup, FAQ, feature snippet, Bob's your uncle, and he is my uncle, in fact. You're away. And this is the proof. Proof is in the pudding. I convinced the client to do this, and I actually developed the technique working with them. And they had the courage to follow me in this, and we implemented it. There you can see. We had an accordion system before. We took the same 20 questions and simply pushed them out onto 20 pages, 50 queries, 10 feature snippets, ranking for intent commercial queries as well as informational queries, and we're getting a hockey stick. And what I've seen is that Google's getting more and more confident that we're trustworthy with our answers, and we'll see where that leads us in a moment. Tip 2, site links. Laurence mentioned them. This is my site. I've been working on this. You can optimize them. Don't forget to do it. Your about page, your login page, my podcast page. These are pages that typically don't rank for other terms. I optimize them for my site links because these are, or Google's producing these so that people can navigate to these parts of my site. They're more often than not shown within the context of my brand search. And so I can be concise and I can be convincing to to pick people who are already my clients for the login, for example, but also to people who are researching me with the about or the podcast or the ad brand, to Kalicube Pro, which you can do for free if you want to track your brand on Kalicube using the Authoritas API through Kalicube. You can, and it's free and it's brilliant and I love it, but then I would because it's mine. Next one. Tip 3, chunks, blocks, and fraggles. Cindy Crum, fraggles. Jono Alderson from Yoast, blocks. I'm talking about chunks, and Microsoft talk about chunks too. Use HTML5. This is a forgotten thing that people are going to think, oh, it doesn't really matter. But and in fact, John Mueller from Google told me, yeah, we don't really care. Fabrice Canel from Bing, who's the crawly, discovery, extracty story guy at Bing. He's the Bing bot guy. Told me that this is an incredibly helpful thing because they have to discover, obviously, crawl, extracting. HTML5 helps them, but when they store and they index, they label the data when they stick it in the database so that the others can pull it out. And his annotations are incredibly important. And he said HTML5, anything standardized, helps them with the annotations. And that is the key to getting your content pulled out by the people who do the feature snippets, the videos, and all those other rich elements. So if you don't give him the handle to be able to annotate your chunks, blocks, or fraggles of information, he can't help you. And he wants to help you. He's a really nice guy. Next one. Think Darwinism. This is from an article I wrote, Darwinism in Search. Gary Ellis explained how Google functions, and this is what steps got me really started on the brand SERPs. Basically, basis is 10 blue links, and these rich elements get a place. They live and die by their value to the user. So if you want to get a rich element, you want to get a feature snippet or a video, you need to prove that you provide more value to the user in the context of that search than the blue links. And it's actually quite easy. As Dave said, the competition is less in videos and in feature snippets, although it might not seem that way. And Google and Bing want to put these because they bring more value to their users as a general rule. And I'd like to add to what Dave said, which is don't compete with your competitors. And in fact, you can do what he does, find somewhere, be better, but you can also find somewhere where one of these rich elements would be useful if only there were a good one. So you can trigger them. I like the idea of triggering that where one doesn't exist, you can create it by proving value to their users. And that's what Laurence was saying, oh, it's Dave. The people that you're trying to reach are your audience. Remember always that they're Google and Bing's users, not yours. Next one, and this is my favorite, and I saved it to last because it's really cool. Tip 5, engagement is the key. Google have been kind of dilly-dallying around the question of whether user engagement influences rankings. This guy is called Nathan Chalmers, from Bing. I've done a series of interviews with Bing team leads for my podcast. I've done audio video with Minaz. I've done feature snippets with Ali Alvi, who's brilliant. And this guy, Nathan Chalmers, who's the whole page algorithm. And sitting on top of all these other algorithms that push content onto the SERPs, he's the boss guy. He's the one who manipulates it, changes the anatomy to suit the users, and his big signal is user engagement. So you need to make your elements really attractive, get users engaging with them so that he gives you a boost. The series, it's at the bottom there, https kalicube.pro/Bing. These are coming out over the month of April. There are 5 episodes, and it's how does Bing ranking work? How do all these elements get their places? And how does this guy control the whole page? And I'm really excited. It's going to be really good fun. So please do listen to that series, and I'll be writing articles about it too. I was going to say something else, but I've completely forgotten what it was. So it doesn't matter.
Thank you very much, Jason. That was great. You have a lot of different tips. Feel free to ask Dave some of the questions that you wanted to put forward.
Oh, well, I've actually completely forgotten them because I thought I'm not allowed to ask them, so I thought there was no point in remembering.
I'm going to jump in. I just get some clarity if I can jump in with a question for both Laurence and Jason here on this, just to see if are we all see sort of the same thing. Jason, you had commented on, I believe it was FAQ schema was one that you had used in an example that you were talking about. As far as featured snippets go, I'm personally finding FAQ, how to, and recipe as 3 sort of the easiest paths. Are you guys seeing about the same? And I'm referring to non-local, just like for generic. It's a little different from local, but what are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been using FAQ because it's a trick I've been using for a client, and I was using it for brand SERPs. I tend to use a lot of stuff with Schema Markup. I use same as an awful lot, but not to get the feature snippet, obviously. And one thing, Ali Alvi from Bing, who's the guy who deals with the feature snippets, was talking about how he functions, and he relies incredibly heavily on Fabrice Canal's annotations. And Schema Markup is one of the things that Fabrice uses for the annotation. So Schema Markup helps with the annotation that then allows Ali to dig down, pull this stuff up, and stick it in a SERP. Laurence.
Yeah, I'd just say, certainly ourselves, we've been using FAQ a lot and seen immediate results with organic FAQs and feature snippets for some of the terms for certain pages which weren't, ranking as well as they should do. And I think adding related questions to your content shows an additional level of relevance, which is rewarded in Google. It's not going to be rewarded immediately in higher organic rankings, but I think over time it's going to help. But obviously you get the benefit of organic FAQs and feature snippets. And we see results, lots of clients, of which, one I gave an example earlier, who are getting double organic FAQs in rare cases where, they've got London to Aberdeen flights or Aberdeen to London. They have both sides of the query. That works really well. And how-tos, less so recipes, because obviously we have no need to. Although after this week and all the cakes I've eaten, possibly we may be doing some, top tip SEO bake-off tips or something. I don't know. I've got a question just to throw one back to Jason, actually, just in terms, obviously you've spent a lot of time with Bing, and you've obviously spent some time with the Google guys as well. And can you really apply, what you picked up from Bing to Google? I mean, because yes, the algorithms may differ slightly, but the overall approach is, there are some basic information retrieval approaches and machine learning approaches that they're taking, and it doesn't take long for one or the other to copy the other when a new feature comes out. So, can you really follow sort of Bing and apply that to Google?
That was the point I forgot to mention at the end when I thought I knew there's something else I wanted to say, and that was exactly it. Thank you very much, Laurence. Gary explained that Darwinism system, and I called it Darwinism search, not him. So I made that, or I made it up. I applied the term. And I talked to Frederic Debus from Bing, who's the blue link algorithm guy at Bing, in an interview, and he said, yeah, we work exactly the same way. Our system is the same. And he explained about the whole page team and the feature snippets team and the video team and the knowledge graph team and so on and so forth, which is why I went to Redmond to interview them. So yes, the thing is they both function basically the same. The algorithms are different and the machine learning is obviously different. The data is different. Google's got boatloads more. But the fundamental system of functioning is Darwinism. Oh, and that was the other thing, is this guy, Nathan Chalmers, was laughing his head off. He said, oh, I read your article about Darwinism and search, and it's great. He loves it. And I'm not making this up. I've got it on record. And the algorithm that sorts the wood from the chaff with all these elements is called Darwin. Isn't that great?
Brilliant.
So they actually have an algorithm that basically all of these bids come in, and theoretically, if you followed pure Darwinistic theory, you would have, let's say, 6 rich elements. And he's saying, okay, that's too much. That one isn't appropriate. That one isn't going to help. And so he gets rid of the ones that won't help out. And another thing is they're trying to keep the pages more or less the same length as they were before. So you will tend to find that a rich element will swap out with blue link directly. It's a one-on-one swap, except in unambiguous queries where the SERPs tend to be getting shorter. There you go.
Great. Well, thank you, Jason.
Answer, wasn't it? I do apologize.
I have one question. You said about your client with the frequently asked questions schema markup and saying that you saw the results so quickly. How long did it take your client to agree to do this?
Oh, it took me 6 months to convince them that it was worth a punt.
6 months.
And then when we did it, the first month, they kept saying, we're going to fire you, we're going to fire you, we're going to fire you, because it didn't go up quickly enough. And I credit to them, they stuck with it. And basically, it's gone like that, as you saw. And it took 2 months to really take off. And now they're creating FAQs. Pardon me?
So it took 2 months to create to take off, but you said it got indexed within a few seconds. Is that right?
No, that was my site. That was my own test, and that's another thing.
Oh, your own test.
Is that somebody was talking about how Bing can now index in a few seconds, but Google's been doing it for ages, and Bing still have been doing it for ages. And what I found is what I consider to be sites that I work with that are more trusted will get indexed faster. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but for my sites, it's 20 seconds. And for some of I've got one client from a year ago who'd been building spammy backlinks, and it took a week to get anything indexed.
Okay, so it's very client dependent.
Yep. So yeah, don't count on 20 seconds. That's me mouthing off and being proud of myself. Sorry.
No, but that is a valid point. And I think it's the crawl budget is what that boils down to, right? You submit through Search Console, and how much crawl budget do you have? If you got a bunch of spammy links, you got, probably a page a week, apparently, is what your crawl budget allocation is.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, no, and I think kind of a lot of it. I mean, I like the idea of trust and authority. When I was talking to the guys at Bing, I keep going on about it, but it's because I've just listened to all their interviews again to publish them this month, and they all talk about authority, and they all talk about trust. And the guy Minaz from the video and images team kept saying, "If you prove yourself to be trustworthy, we will trust you. If you prove yourself to be untrustworthy, we will tend to drop you."
Good tips
from
them. So we'll be watching those videos. And if anyone would like to get hold of you, I've put your Twitter. We put your Twitter handles there. Ask Laurence, Jason, and Barnard, and Beanstalk. And we have on Monday another session with Christina Azarenko and Luke Carthy talking about improving e-commerce conversions from organic. Thank you very much to Dave, Jason, and Laurence for joining us today for Tea Time SEO. If you would like to take part, be one of our speakers, please contact Carrie, who has been sending out some emails, sending you the agenda for the week. Have a good weekend, and see you all on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.